Welcome back, everybody. I have some data here I want to bring to your attention. I'm going to bring Audrey Gusky on in just a moment. Of course, PhD, Consumer Marketing Analyst in Duquesne University. All right, now, there is an organization, perhaps you're very familiar with it, called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Let's call it CFPB, like I'll ever call it that again. This organization apparently came about a couple of years ago. In 2012, it received from consumers like yourself and me and Audrey 91,000 complaints, and we'll talk about what those complaints were. Last year, 2013, it received 80% more of complaints about service, about specific areas of banking and mortgages and so forth, 80% more to 164,000. This year alone, and we're only in the second week of April, 310,000 people have called to complain about service in this country. So I ask you, do we have a problem with service in this country, or basically do people call because someone's available to listen? Here to answer questions of that sort is our friend Audrey Gusky. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing? Always happy to be here.
Well, I hope that set the stage.
It was perfect.
I mean, we have people complain. Well, first of all, why are people complaining? What specifically? My toy doesn't work, or the bank's ripping me off? I mean, let's talk about some of the whats.
Well, basically what we're talking about is the financial group. So they're talking about they're having problems with their mortgage. They can't pay it, and so they don't know what to do. They're talking about credit agencies approaching them. They're also talking about debt collection. So they're mainly financial issues where people are having big problems with, partly because of the financial situation perhaps they're in.
Right. Well,
or they're dissatisfied with the service they're getting. They're not being treated well. It's a combination.
I mean, we know that financially, economically, we're in a different place than we were in 2008,
right.
But we're in a different place than we were at other times in a recent past when things were going swimmingly well.
Sure.
As a result, there could be individuals who are in fact underwater and subject to a lot of these contacts. Maybe A, they don't want to be contacted, and number two, they may not like to be pushed around, which and understandably then could lead. But tell us a little bit about this organization, CFPB. I mean, because obviously the word's out, you could call and register a complaint and presumably get some action done.
Action within 15 days, they say. So it's pretty substantial action, and they also have, you know, the federal government behind them, so that way they have some clout. And so it's very interesting, but you wonder why have these complaints increased exponentially? Several reasons. We're now aware of this organization, as you were hinting to. The fact that people can complain electronically, it's so easy to just send out an email to this organization and say this is what happened. And also, as you had said, service is getting worse. It is, you know, I hate to say service stinks, but it, you know, in a lot of ways it does. And so the fact that consumers now realize that, hey, I have some power. I can complain and perhaps get some action because I should be treated well because I'm a customer and I'm paying good money for whatever service you're providing me.
We're 3.5 months into 2014 and we're already twice the number of complaints of entire 2013.
It's amazing.
I mean, and let's dig in. All right. It said open in stores in 2011, the complaints were about credit cards. Then in 2012, it was credit cards, mortgages, bank accounts, services, private student loans, can you imagine, and vehicle consumer loans, people getting behind on payments.
Right, exactly.
Okay, last year it began taking complaints on money transfers, debt collection, and payday loans. So a couple of things come to mind. Number one, they've increased their services, if you will. They've increased their service for you to complain about your service.
Correct.
Number two, while I understand being pushed around and being agitated and feeling that there are legitimate complaints, which obviously there are people who are deadbeats. Okay, let's be perfectly honest. I mean, there's a certain percentage here that aren't paying their bills.
Right.
Look, I understand what it's like to have your nose just above the water. But the reality is there are some other people that, you know, they put themselves in bad positions.
And it's also the way you approach people, regardless of their financial situation, whether they're a deadbeat or whether they are just really struggling with different family types of issues. And so these organizations, these credit collection agencies and credit card companies and mortgage companies need to be aware of that. And I think the fact that they're not really working with customers is the situation. And now that consumers have an outlet, they have a source, they have a place to go, they are going there. And I think it says a lot. It speaks like volumes as far as the power that we as consumers have, and we can approach these organizations.
Here's what ticks me off, and I'm putting it politely. When you miss by one day and you get a phone call, And it's an 800 number,
Yes,
and it's
yes.
somebody telling me to give them a call immediately because, you know, the world's coming to an end.
And you get charged the financial, you know.
Right. One day.
Yeah, one day.
Okay, one day. All right,
What's
that
the
bothers
grace
me.
period?
Yeah, let me ask you this,
Okay.
because I think a lot of people may agree with me, frankly. When you get into a tight spot, and we all get in tight spots, some of our own doing, some because of fate.
Absolutely.
I have found that if you go to the provider and you say, I need help.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I have literally, my honest to gosh, been brought to tears by people who've helped me.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, isn't that also a route?
Well, this brings up an interesting point for me because, you know, I'm working on a book on how to get better customer service. Yeah, and that's the basic premise of the book. If you're nice to them and approach them, but getting to your key question, and we can talk about the book in a minute, but getting to your key question, absolutely approach them. That's why they're there. They will help you. And if you explain your situation and tell them your story and say, listen, you know, this happened, I'm so sorry. Can you give me an extra month, or I need a couple weeks, or I really need some help. What can you do for me? Can we decrease the payments? Or, you know, and they will work with us because that's why they're there. And it's a matter of being kind. If you call them and screaming at them, why are you doing this to me? You're nasty people, and use other explicits that we can't be using, and then, you know, they're not going to do anything with you. You've got to work with them because it's a team effort. The customer and the service provider, we need to work together because it's a win-win situation for everybody then.
When I asked you that question, I didn't do it as a segue to ask you for tips on how to do this, but I may have just use it as a segue to ask you about tips.
Sure.
Because you, in fact, gave some tips. Do you have, assuming there's more fertile ground there, what other tips would you have for people other than being nice and maybe calling the provider and saying, look, I got a problem with electricity. I got a problem. I lost my freaking job. Help me out here.
Right. Well, there's so many tips. I don't know where to begin. But let's just say if you're having issues like this, of course, be nice. Call them by name. If you don't get any service or satisfaction from the individual you're talking to, they very politely ask for a supervisor or someone else. Sometimes I hang up and then call back again. Maybe I get a nicer service provider, you know, customer service rep on the phone. So those are some things you can do. But of course, if you're really not getting satisfaction, sending the emails to the right organizations. If it's a company per se, send it to the top, you know, one of the top managers there and let them know the situation. My students have done a lot of interesting studies in some of my classes, and the assignment that they have is to write a complaint letter. And they have to send it to an organization, whether it's a restaurant, an airline, movie theater, that they've had some problems with. And it's interesting, I've been doing this for 10 years. And over the 10 years, about half of the students who have complained have received a response. And 1/3 of them get something back. Free meal at a restaurant, free airline, you know, a movie theater ticket, whatever they've complained about, 1/3 of them get some kind of actual physical satisfaction. So, so my point is, it pays to complain. If you complain right, and you know, whether you send an email, an actual snail mail letter, something, call a manager, tell them when you're in the restaurant, because we as customers deserve excellent customer service.
We do, but I don't mean to say but. I do. I get that. I just said this the other day to my team at home. If you had 4 stacks, if you had a sympathy card stack, a happy birthday card stack, just a plain stack, and one that's congratulations for whatever reason, you could send a card out every day.
Yeah.
You could.
Yeah.
If somebody does something nice, such as
yes,
the restaurant,
yes.
whatever,
That's a good point.
I know that we talk all the time about, you know, the internet and the impersonality of all of this, but you just raised a question or the point, a scenario of somebody giving you better service when the manager may take over at the restaurant.
Yeah.
How about writing the guy a note?
Absolutely.
We don't do this. Write the guy, you know, once again, thanks for all your help, Nick. It was a pleasure being in. Look forward to being in again soon.
I had excellent customer service from Enterprise. I don't know if I can tell you the full story, but okay, I'll tell you part of the story.
You're
how much do I have enough time? Okay,
I got 2 minutes.
So basically what happened is my driver's, I shouldn't say this on live TV, but my driver's license expired. I went to rent a car. I had the little camera card. I thought it would work. It didn't work. That had expired. I thought they never expired. The guy offered.
Did you go to jail?
No, not yet.
Okay.
So the guy offered to drive me, the Enterprise guy that was running the car, offered to drive me to the driver's license, wait for me to get my picture and license, and then bring me back. He did that. I wrote a fabulous letter to Enterprise about him. He got a huge promotion. I think he's a CEO now, really.
No, really.
Well,
you gave him the big push.
Yeah, but I mean, the point was, I was so, and I also write a column in the Pittsburgh Business Times, and I highlighted him in that one too. His name is Kevin. So, it was amazing, the feedback that he received as a result of me. Very few of us out of the hundreds of complaints, let's say, that you would have, guess how many consumers actually write letters? Out of 100 consumers?
Right.
3.
Hey, I hear you. I got to wrap. Okay. I got to ask you for 45 seconds. Tell me about the book. I mean, we'll talk about it again.
Oh, the book is fabulous. It's called Service Rules, How to Be Treated as Every Company's Best Customer. And it's tips and it's itch words. You will love this. We have to come back and talk about it. It's pitch, niche, ditch and switch, the B word, you know, and hitch. And it's all these niche and all these different rules underneath each of the itch words as to how you can get better customer service. It's really a how-to. And it's some of the simple things that we talked about and some more complex things. And it's really a powerful book. And hopefully it'll be out by the summer.
Okay. Well, it will be, because you're Audrey Gusky, and you got to come and talk to us about it.
I would love to.
Always
do that.
a pleasure. You want to give your waves?
And I have to say, good night, Jake and Luke. You know, Grandma loves you.
Okay. How to do that.
Oh, and I have to say hi to my students, too.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're getting extra credit. So the secret word, what should the secret word be for them?
Ellis Cannon.
Ellis Cannon, I love it. Okay, Ellis Cannon for extra points.
There you go. We're going to come back and talk about the parts. Thanks, AG.